No one seems to upset the far-right MAGA world more than Justice Amy Coney Barrett, the woman who is supposed to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg and be the RBG of the far right, has instead shown her independence from the MAGA world. Let's discuss. I'm Dave Aronberg, former state attorney from Palm Beach County, aka the Florida lawman, here on the MeidasTouch Network. Thank you for all your support. And also, quick plug of my book right over there, Fighting the Florida Shuffle. Check it out. It talks about the corruption of the drug treatment industry and how we were able to fight it here in Palm Beach County. But let's talk about Justice Amy Coney Barrett. So this is a individual who was seen as very right-wing, very religious Catholic, who is going to overturn Roe versus Wade and who was going to do Donald Trump's bidding. Well, the predictions were right on the first one. It is true. Justice Amy Coney Barrett was one of 5 votes to overturn Roe versus Wade. Even Chief Justice Roberts said, no, that's going too far. Chief Justice Roberts, who is not a supporter of abortion rights, but believed that Roe versus Wade had been in law long enough that if you overturn it, it would end up in huge upheaval and undermine the faith in the Supreme Court that many Americans had. Well, he was right about that. After 50 years of precedent, the Supreme Court out of nowhere overturned Roe versus Wade in a 5-4 ruling. And when I say out of nowhere, it's because the justices in the majority, most of them said that they thought that Roe versus Wade was settled law, including Amy Coney Barrett. So no, I'm not giving her a pass on that. But since then, she has shown her independence, infuriating the MAGA right. I mean, just check this clip out of Donald Trump walking by her after the State of the Union. And yeah, when you see that expression, it doesn't take a lot of guesswork to know how she is thinking, what she's thinking, and how disgusted she is of the person who appointed her. Well, that infuriated MAGA world as well, but it's not just her expressions, it's her opinions. In a new fascinating article in the New York Times, they go in depth and provide some stories we hadn't heard before. When the conservatives thought that she'd be a solid vote for them. Remember, it's supposed to be a 6-3 conservative majority on the Supreme Court with Chief Justice Roberts as an occasional swing vote. Well, according to the New York Times, soon after Justice Barrett arrived at the court, she began surprising her colleagues. Chief Justice John G. Roberts Jr. assigned her to write a majority opinion among her first, allowing the seizure of state property in a pipeline case, according to several people aware of the process. But she then changed her mind and took the opposite stance, a bold move that risked irritating the Chief Justice. In another early case, as Justice Samuel A. Alito Jr. tried to further his decades-long quest to expand the role of religion in public life, she preferred a more restrained route, setting off a clash in their approaches that continues. And in a key internal vote, she opposed even taking up the case that overturned Roe versus Wade and the federal right to abortion, although she ultimately joined the ruling. Now Mr. Trump is attacking the judiciary and testing the Constitution, and Justice Barrett, appointed to clinch a 50-year conservative legal revolution, is showing signs of a leftward drift. She's become the Republican-appointed justice most likely to be in the majority in decisions that reach a liberal outcome, according to a new analysis of a record prepared for the New York Times. Her influence, measured by how often she is on the winning side, is rising. Along with a Chief Justice, a frequent voting partner, Justice Barrett could be one of the few people in the country to check the actions of the president. This is truly amazing because it is now Amy Coney Barrett and Justice Roberts' court. It is really Amy Coney Barrett's court because Chief Justice Roberts, as the Chief Justice, has decided to go sometimes with the far right on the immunity decision. He wrote that decision. But it was Amy Coney Barrett who said, no, you're going too far on that section that said that you can't even use official act evidence to prove unofficial act crimes. And so her decision now, on that one, she was not the swing vote. It was 5-4. But generally, she's in the majority. She owns that court along with Chief Justice Roberts. But what makes it so surprising is that Amy Coney Barrett was supposed to be the young firebrand. When I say young, I mean, she got appointed. She was in her late 40s, but that's young for Supreme Court standards. And here's where MAGA shot themselves in the foot. Unlike when Democrats appoint justices, Republicans generally appoint them young because they want them to be on the court for many years. And I know Democratic presidents, especially with Ketanji Brown Jackson, have started to do that as well, appoint younger justices and judges. But this was something revolutionized by the Republicans. They wanted their judges and justices on the court for a long time. It didn't matter as much about their qualifications. And so the drawback of that is that when you appoint someone like Amy Coney Barrett, she's going to be on the court for decades to come. And no, MAGA world, she's not resigning. There are people out there who said she should resign. And no, she's not going to be impeached. She'll be on the court for decades to come. And that seat was one that was cherished by the right wing. They thought that they were going to turn the court because when RBG passed away, they wanted their version of RBG. Well, it turns out to be a swing justice, and including if you see the graph here that the New York Times provided, how often Barrett voted with the majority. Look at this. When it comes to liberal decisions, 91%. Conservative decisions, 84%. That is pretty amazing. In interviews, some liberals who consider the court lost when she was appointed have used phrases like, "It's all on Amy." When Justices Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan agreed on non-unanimous decisions this term, Justice Barrett joined them 82% of the time, up from 39% of the time in her first term. Some of Mr. Trump's allies have turned on her, accusing the justice of being a turncoat and calling her a mother of 7 with 2 black children adopted from Haiti, a DEI hire. Her young son asked why she had a bulletproof vest, she said in the speech last year. And her extended family has been threatened, including with pizza deliveries that convey a warning. We know where you live. Now, I'm not saying that Justice Amy Coney Barrett is a revelation for progressives. She's not. She has sided with the majority on a number of conservative issues. Affirmative action, for example, voting rights. She has been locked in on some like gun rights, but she has shown enough independence that she has really drawn the ire of people like Steve Bannon. This spring on Stephen K. Bannon's podcast, he tore into her in such crude terms, even mocking the size of her family. This spring on Stephen K. Bannon's podcast, he tore into her in such crude terms, even mocking the size of her family, that Justice Neil M. Gorsuch, for whom Mr. Davis had once clerked, phoned him to express disapproval of his comments, according to people aware of the exchange. That's Mike Davis, who is a right-wing firebrand who is usually lockstep with Steve Bannon, and Gorsuch called Mike Davis to say that is wrong, that is appalling. Mr. Trump has privately complained about her too, according to 2 people familiar with his thinking. So let's just review. Remember, there were some important issues, not just on immunity that she didn't side with the MAGA, not just the ones I mentioned, but remember when Donald Trump wanted to avoid his sentence, wanted to go into the White House without being a convicted felon. Nope. Amy Coney Barrett and Chief Justice Roberts said, no, you're going to have to stand for sentencing. You're going to have to be sentenced before you go there. And he's now a convicted felon. So this is the kind of thing that is grown on MAGA. They did not intervene when Trump wanted them to. And there have been a number of decisions since then where Amy Coney Barrett just continues to divert from the MAGA hegemony. In Justice Barrett's first weeks on the court, soon after arguments in the gay foster care case, the court heard the 3rd major Republican challenge to Mr. Obama's health care law. Justice Alito voted to overturn it. Justice Barrett and others took the position that the suit was invalid because the plaintiffs lacked standing. As his colleagues were declining to remedy what Justice Alito saw as an egregious problem, he once again wrote a blistering critique. In a patent case, he and Justice Barrett wrote dueling dissents, both claiming that Justice Scalia would have favored their positions. And then there are those major cases. Like in major ones, Justice Barrett has been in the majority more than any of her colleagues, a measure of her rising influence. Last month, she effectively decided a case by recusing herself. You remember this one. The court was weighing whether government money could fund the nation's first religious charter school. Justice Barrett stepped aside, presumably because a friend was an advisor to the school. The court deadlocked 4-4 in what could have been a precedent-setting case, and some conservative activists pounced on Justice Barrett for walking away. You think she did it on purpose? Yeah, I don't think she wanted to go as far as the conservatives did, and one way to avoid it was to step aside. So this is something we'll continue to watch here in the MeidasTouch network. I know a lot of us thought the court was lost for generations once Ruth Bader Ginsburg died and Amy Coney Barrett was appointed. But we've seen this in the past where you've had conservative justices get that lifetime appointment and then they start moving away from the right towards the center, even to the left. Let's look at Justice David Souter or Harry Blackmun. If you don't know the name Harry Blackmun, he was appointed by Nixon and wrote the Roe versus Wade opinion. Yeah, so there is precedent for this. We've seen this before. It just was not expected. That's the latest here on the MeidasTouch Network. I'm Dave Aronberg, a.k.a. the Florida Lawman. Thank you for your support. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share with a friend, leave a comment below. Thank you for leaving great comments, and check out my book, Fighting the Florida Shuffle. Available for purchase now, and I'll see you next time.
Love this video? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch and help us blow past 1 million followers.